Joe, I am so glad to have you here today. Welcome back. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me, Michael. It's a big day for everybody here in the mass tort world, and everybody around the world is really talking about what happened yesterday.
Yeah, it is the day after. Look, we had 2 days, two trials, two gigantic verdicts, one litigation. Joe, tell us, what do we need to know? What do the people need to know right now? What other lawyers and plaintiffs need to know about the social media addiction lawsuit?
Like you mentioned, Michael, we saw two separate verdicts. So the first one that came down in New Mexico, and that case was filed by the New Mexico Attorney General, and that was alleging that basically big tech companies violated the New Mexico statute, which requires that they don't provide and produce misleading information. And basically, it was alleging that this misleading information about how safe the children were, how safe the platform was, caused these kids to be injured. And so, what happened in that trial, it was a $375 million verdict. Under New Mexico law, they were allowed to impose $5,000 per violation, and that's the maximum they could do, and that's what they handed down. So, in addition to that trial, there's about another 40 AGs across the country who have similar litigations going on against big tech. They pretty much just got the roadmap to it. So that's going to apply a lot of pressure to these big tech companies.
It's amazing. And I really hope that we're able to help as many people as possible. How many, if don't give me a number necessarily, but I mean, how much of the market is still out there where there are individuals who would qualify, people we can help together? How many people are still out there?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's hundreds of thousands of potential plaintiffs out there. So the second case, the trial that came down in California, so that was a trial involving an individual plaintiff. That's more likely the type of plaintiffs that we represent, or people who are reaching out to either one of us for help are going to represent. So as an individual plaintiff, and after 9 days of deliberation, the jury came back with a $6 million verdict. It was $3 million for compensatory, $3 million for punitive. It was 70% against Meta, and then the remaining 30% was against Google for YouTube. But we also have to remember, before the trial started, back in February, there was a settlement with Snap and TikTok. So pretty much all four of the big players, they're paying towards this case. I think the amount is enough reasonable that even though Meta and Google are appealing, I think it's going to get held up on appeal. But in this litigation for the individual plaintiffs, there's under 10,000 cases pending right now between the MDL and the state court action. So, by way of reference, in the talcum powder litigation, we have about 70,000 cases pending. You remember the 3M earplug, more than 300,000. Roundup, there was 100,000 cases settled. Another 60, 70,000 potentially in this class action. So, we've seen these large mass torts. I think in this social media addiction, just how prevalent it was, I think we're talking hundreds of thousands of plaintiffs. So I think we'll end up somewhere between Roundup 150 to 3M 300. So maybe 200, 250,000 total plaintiffs getting involved here.
So there's still time. No one has a crystal ball, but in terms of your best estimate, is this something that people should kind of engage with a lawyer sooner rather than later? Is there more time for them to talk to a lawyer, or is this something that we should really act on right away if we're a parent and we
Yeah,
have a child who's been impacted?
I think there's some more urgency now. People have been working on these cases for 5 years, so it takes a lot of time to get the cases to trial. We've really been digging in the background, getting the internal documents, learning what they knew, when did they know it, and we pretty much have that puzzle put together. Now we're seeing some changes by these big tech companies about the verifications of the ages, or the AI that they're using to weed out harmful conduct, things of that nature. And we saw in other countries, in Europe that they're banning it for any minors, any people under 16 or 13. So we're seeing these changes by these big tech companies that we want it, but that they're really doing it to limit their liability. So people down the line won't be able to sue, and they'll be able to bring this to a resolution once and for all. So I think there will be a lot of interest here, the next 6 months, and hopefully in a year, within 2 years, we can get all of these cases resolved. So, a lot of people are going to be reaching out today, in the future, but there's a little bit of time, but definitely the urgency's increased significantly.
Joe, it's so important that you share this information, especially with the sense of urgency and everything. And I get a lot of questions about criteria. And so if you were out there right now, I know you absolutely are, but if you were an attorney and you were looking to take on and help as many people as possible in this litigation, or if you're a parent, how do you determine whether or not you might qualify, right? So at what point do you reach out to an attorney?
Yeah, I mean, I think the two main pieces of criteria that are involved is like establishing that proof of use. So we really need people who are using these platforms frequently, and you have children of your own. We know from all of these cases, people are on this nonstop every single day. So that level of usage isn't a problem. The plaintiff in the trial, I think she started using Instagram when she was 6, and YouTube when she was 11. So people are going to be on this nonstop, and then really there's going to be ultimately tiers of injuries. But we don't want to minimize what anybody's been through. But in the trial, unfortunately, that wasn't the most severe or significant injuries we've seen a plaintiff suffer in these cases, right? There's unfortunately suicide cases, there's attempted suicide cases, there's body harm. So anybody really that has had their mental health impacted by this, so somebody who's depressed, they're anxious, they have body issues, I think that's a case, and really we saw in this trial that that's a case that can get compensated, and we can help that plaintiff. So I would encourage anybody who is acquiring cases or knows somebody, if you have a minor, really start it before the age of 16, that use the platform for significant amount of time, hours a week, and then developed any sort of mental health issue on the lower end, all the way up to, abuse problems, issues with school, suicidal thoughts. That's worth reaching out to an attorney to see if they can help you.
Yeah, it's so important, especially since a lot of people are confused about what this lawsuit is. There's a lot of information that's not out there that came out in the trials. Different documentation about Meta and YouTube and infinite scroll, and you kind of touched on a lot of these topics in our last webinar and even our last podcast. Can you just take a moment, just take a beat, and just rehash for a moment some of the legitimacy to this lawsuit, some of the compelling things that might have come out in the trial? It doesn't have to be super in depth, but just something that people can familiarize themselves a little bit so they can either make more informed decisions about their law firms, or if you're a parent, navigate whether or not this is something that you want to put your child into.
I think the trial and something I really want to make sure we talk about is like, thank you to the plaintiff to coming forward in this trial case. Imagine being, a young girl who went through all of these problems, and admittedly, she might not have had the best family situation, but that doesn't make her any less of a person or what she went through any less. And she had a fight against the biggest, most powerful corporations in the world. They attacked every single aspect of her life, analyzed every post, every scroll, every like, her family history, attacked her mother, attacked her upbringing, attacked her school grades, and she sat there and she took it and she testified and she won the day, and she changed the history of the world going forward. And these platforms are going to be a lot safer eventually because of her. So I want to make sure we recognize her and the courage it was for her to come forward and put this fight in open court. That's not a small feat. and she did it. So I really respect her and thank her. And all of the other plaintiffs here owe a debt of gratitude to her. So that was great. But I think it showed us that somebody can make a difference, and we know from our experience in these mass torts, the more people that come forward, the more pressure we can apply with more plaintiffs, and then the AGs and the school districts. That's how we're going to bring about change, right? We saw from these internal documents that they knew, 10 years ago internally, they're saying, hey, this is a problem. Hey, maybe we should do this study to test this, or we should make this change because these kids are being on here too long. And what they did is what we saw again and again is profits over people. Their loyalty lies with their shareholders, not with the kids that are using the platform. So we knew this was going to be the story, right? We knew, me and you, unfortunately, we've seen this playbook time and time again. And that's exactly what came out in this case. So we know they knew about it. They've known about it for a decade. They had a chance to change it. They could change it tomorrow if they wanted. Right now, they could change all their systems across the whole world, save so many lives, and they're not going to do it. The only way they're going to do it is if more people come forward like this plaintiff. We get the pressure going, and then we'll see some real changes. So there's time to get involved. I think everybody should have a hard talk with their family and their children. If they've been impacted, reach out to Michael, reach out to me, see how you guys can get involved. Law firms, we want more law firms in here fighting, because the more people we have on our side, the more change we can bring about.
Yeah, it's raising awareness. I mean, these companies are not going to make change unless they're hit in a fundamental way. They're already willing to, like you just said, right? You encapsulated the whole thing when you said sacrifice people to make profits, right? It's profits over people. And we want to make sure that we hold them accountable when individuals are put in harm's way and actually now there's harm actually inflicted upon them. And so every single person who is able to sign up for this and who qualifies is helping future generations of individuals from being harmed. And that is just an immense thank you, like you just said. I mean, one of the key parts that came out of this trial that I actually loved was the conversation about what's the price of childhood. And so this is just that vein. It's really important. Now, Joe, when you're talking about the social media addiction lawsuits and everything moving forward, what's the best way that someone could reach out to you, for instance, if they had more questions?
Yeah, they can reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn. Reach out to me there. They can email me. Reach out to Michael. He's real popular on LinkedIn too. Email him. And I think people should reach out to people that have been involved in these cases for a while, right? There's going to be some misinformation out there. I'll be honest. Now there's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of buzz. So if you go with trusted sources that, we know the criteria. We know what we're seeing in these cases. But don't just go out to some company or some person that's just starting today to get involved. We've been working on these cases for years, as have a lot of others, but protect yourself, protect your firm, protect your children by working with somebody who is a reputable source and trust it instead of somebody that's just popping up here.
Love that. It's a good warning for everybody who's getting involved, because just like the actual corporations can be predatory, there's situations where people could take advantage. And even if they have all good intent, if they don't actually know the process to go through, the criteria, what to do, they could potentially, mishandle a litigation or a case, and that puts you and your family at risk. So it's better to make sure you make educated decisions. You go with individuals who actually are experts in this field and are, actually handling it. For instance, if you had heart issues, you would see a cardiologist. You wouldn't just go see any doctor, right? And so I think it's important that you go to a specialist or someone who's been handling these kinds of claims. Amazing. Is there anything that people should know before we head off? I know this is a really cool impromptu day after recap. And so is there anything that, parting conversations or big learning that you have that you want to make sure that people know about?
Yeah, we had the huge verdict yesterday, but this is just getting started. right? There's plenty of time to get involved. There's plenty of people to help. So, put your time, put your resources into it. We can all get involved. There's plenty of room for everybody to get involved, and we can bring about this major change that, like you said, Michael, is going to help future generations. So feel free to reach out to me, reach out to Michael. We're happy to speak with you, let you know what's really going on, sharing what we've learned through a couple years of working on these cases. But we'll keep everybody updated as we move forward, and we'll see everybody out at Mass Tort Made Perfect, where I'm sure they'll be talking about it.
We'll definitely be seeing people. It's all over the news already, and it'll be a big topic, I'm sure. Joe Does Law, Joseph Fantini, thank you for being on, as always. Look, this is a huge litigation. It is moving along very, very swiftly, and now with two major positive verdicts on the plaintiff side, it just makes it even more competitive. So get involved now. If you can help more people, do it. Join the fight, and we hope to see you soon. Love you guys. Take care, and thank you, Joe. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Michael.